Hey there. Ready for something pretty intense?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at the future of global military power.
Right.
And all this is based on a recent conversation we had with a military expert.
Sounds good.
So let's unpack some of these insights because things are changing really fast.
Yeah.
And conventional wisdom, it might not apply anymore.
Well, I think one of the things that the conflict in Ukraine has shown is that, some weaknesses have been exposed in NATO's approach, particularly when compared to Russia's military capabilities.
So you're saying NATO might be a paper tiger?
Yeah.
Strong on paper.
Strong on paper, but not in reality.
But not in reality.
Yeah.
And they're suggesting that NATO is stuck with outdated strategies and technologies.
Absolutely. In fact, they even go so far as to say that the U.S. Army's current field manuals are obsolete.
Wow.
And should be completely thrown out.
Wow.
And they point to the significant losses suffered by Western forces in Ukraine as evidence that they're just not prepared for a large-scale conflict.
And it's not just the U.S., right?
No, it's not just the U.S.
The expert is particularly critical of the U.K.
Yes, they are.
Calling them a decomposing force.
That has an inflated sense of its own importance, both historically and currently. And they're even skeptical about the reports of British troop deployments to Ukraine,
Right.
suggesting that it's more about political showmanship than actual military strength.
Interesting.
On the other hand, they argue that Russia has emerged as the dominant military force in Eurasia,
Okay.
with capabilities exceeding those of the combined West.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement.
It's a bold statement.
What's their reasoning behind that?
Well, they emphasize that Russia's military strength is actually built on a very solid economic foundation. They even suggest that Russia's economy might be much larger than we think,
Oh, wow.
potentially even the third largest in the world.
So they're not just talking about tanks and missiles.
No, they're not.
They're looking at the bigger economic picture as well.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And then they go on to detail how effective Russia has been in using electronic warfare and what's called ISR, which stands for Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance to control the modern battlefield.
Okay.
They also highlight the success of Russia's high-precision weaponry, especially compared to the limited production capabilities of NATO.
So it sounds like they're saying Russia's playing chess
Yeah,
while NATO is still playing checkers.
that's a great analogy.
And they specifically point out how vulnerable even advanced Western air defense systems,
Right.
like the Patriot,
The Patriot missile system.
are to sophisticated Russian attacks.
Yes.
And there have even been instances of these systems being destroyed in Ukraine.
That's correct. There have been.
That's concerning. So are we talking about a complete failure of these systems?
Well, not necessarily a complete failure. What they're suggesting is that the U.S. air defense systems are just not equipped to deal with the latest threat.
Which is?
Hypersonic weapons.
Okay, that term has been thrown around a lot lately.
It has.
Can you explain exactly what hypersonic weapons are?
Sure.
And why they're such a game changer?
Well, so they're different from ballistic missiles, which only reach hypersonic speeds for a short period.
Okay.
True hypersonic weapons, they fly within the Earth's atmosphere
Okay.
at incredibly high speeds and can maneuver, making them extremely difficult to intercept.
So they're basically like super fast, highly maneuverable missiles
Exactly.
that can evade our current defenses.
Yes. And the expert argues that this is where the West has really fallen behind in the arms race.
Cool.
They point to the effectiveness of Russian hypersonic weapons while the U.S. is still in the development phase, lagging significantly behind.
This all sounds pretty alarming.
It is alarming.
It's almost like we're seeing a major shift
We are.
in the global balance of power
Yeah.
happening right before our eyes.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's not just about military technology, right?
It's not just about military technology, no.
The expert also points to the strengthening partnership between Russia, China, and Iran as a sign of a changing world order.
Absolutely.
That's definitely something we've seen developing over the past few years.
It has been developing for a while.
What are some of the implications of this new alignment?
Well, they highlight the evolving situation in the Middle East, specifically citing Iran's ability to challenge Israel's air defenses as an example of the shifting power dynamics.
Wow.
What they're saying is that countries that were once aligned with the West
Right.
are now forging new alliances and showcasing their own capabilities.
So this new world order isn't just some theoretical concept.
No, it's not theoretical.
It's actually playing out in real world events.
Yes, it is.
Wow. And we're seeing concrete signs of this shift.
Yes.
Like the upcoming signing of strategic partnership agreements between Russia and Iran.
That's right.
And while not a full military alliance,
Right.
it does represent a deepening collaboration.
Yes.
That could have a significant impact on the geopolitical landscape.
It could.
Wow. It seems like the conflict in Ukraine has been like a real wake-up call for a lot of countries.
Yeah, definitely.
Showing that assumptions about military dominance, they can be shattered pretty quickly.
You know what I think this is? This is a moment
Yeah.
for some serious reassessment about global military power.
Okay.
You know, it's not just about the size of your army or your stockpile of weapons anymore, but your ability to adapt to the changing nature of warfare.
I'm curious to hear more about like what they mean by adapting to the changing nature of warfare.
Well, they really emphasize the importance of mastering advanced technologies like electronic warfare, cyber warfare, and hypersonic capabilities. And they're saying that countries that fall behind in these areas are going to find themselves at a serious disadvantage.
So they're suggesting that some Western militaries might be clinging,
I think so,
to outdated strategies that just aren't effective against these new threats.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely part of it. You know, I think they believe that there's a disconnect between sort of the theoretical understanding of warfare and what's actually happening on the ground. And they think this disconnect stems from flawed assumptions about military capabilities.
It sounds like some Western powers might have been living in a bubble.
Yeah.
Believing their own propaganda about military superiority.
That's right.
And the conflict in Ukraine has burst that bubble.
I think that's a very apt way to put it.
Wow.
And it's not just about military capabilities.
What else is it about?
Well, it's also about political will.
Oh, okay.
You know, they suggest that some Western leaders might lack the resolve to confront these challenges that are posed by a rising Russia and its allies.
So we're seeing like a convergence of factors here.
Yeah.
Technological advancements.
That's right.
Shifting geopolitical alliances. And a reassessment of military doctrine. It's all contributing to this fundamental shift in the balance of power.
And this shift is likely to have major consequences
in a way
for global security in the future.
Wow.
You know, we could be moving towards a more multipolar world order where power is distributed more evenly among different blocs.
So that would be a significant departure.
It would be.
From the unipolar world we've seen since the end of the Cold War.
Exactly.
So is this shift toward multipolarity necessarily a bad thing?
Well, that's a good question, and they don't give a definitive answer to that question. Instead, they encourage us to think about
what?
The potential benefits and risks of a multipolar world. On one hand, it could lead to more competition and instability. But on the other hand, it could also force countries to cooperate and find common ground, potentially creating a more balanced and peaceful world.
So while the expert presents a somewhat sobering picture of the current state of global military affairs,
it is a little bit.
They also offer a glimmer of hope.
That's right.
Saying the future isn't set in stone.
That's the key takeaway.
And the decisions we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
That's exactly right.
Wow. It sounds like we're entering like a whole new era.
It does, doesn't it?
When it comes to global military power, the old assumptions, they're being challenged.
They are.
And these new players are emerging.
New players and new technologies, new capabilities.
So the expert doesn't offer any predictions about who will win or lose in this new landscape.
That would be impossible, wouldn't it?
Right.
Nobody can predict the future.
Exactly. So instead of trying to predict the future, we need to understand like the forces at play.
That's right.
And how they might interact.
It's about understanding the dynamics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What stood out to you as the most significant factor in this shift in military power?
Well, I mean, I think it's got to be the rapid advancement and adoption of new technologies. I mean, that's really what's reshaping the global military landscape.
And you mentioned hypersonic weapons earlier.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure.
How is that technology impacting the balance of power?
Well, they're incredibly difficult to detect and intercept. So they basically render a lot of existing defense systems
obsolete.
Absolutely, yeah.
So countries that have developed and deployed these hypersonic weapons, they have a distinct advantage.
They do, and the expert points to Russia as an example. they've successfully developed and deployed these weapons.
So that's a key indicator of their growing military strength.
And they contrast that with the U.S., who are still in the development phase.
Still.
Suggesting a significant lag.
In catching up.
It sounds like the arms race has entered a new and perhaps more dangerous phase.
Well, it's certainly changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about traditional military hardware anymore.
Right.
It's also about things like cyber warfare, electronic warfare, space-based capabilities.
So this shift in military power, it isn't just about who has the biggest bombs or the most troops.
It's about who can effectively leverage these new technologies and adapt to the changing nature of conflict.
It's a lot to process, but it's clear that the global military landscape is undergoing a profound transformation.
A profound transformation.
It's a wake-up call for all of us.
It is.
To stay informed.
Absolutely.
And understand these forces that are shaping our world.
I completely agree.
Subscribe to our podcast, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for more deep dives into complex topics. We are here to make things clear.